Dear students, in this module, we are going to talk about the socio-cultural change. We generally talk about the society and different social aspects and the human behavior. However, these behaviors and the social aspects are not permanent and are not going to be there forever. So, everything that we are passing through is subject to change. So, how this change occurs and what are the dynamics of social change and what factors are engaged in social change, and particularly, we will be talking about different theories of social change as well. So, but specifically in this module, we will be talking about what social change is indeed. So, sociocultural change refers to the phenomenon describing how cultures and societies have changed over time from one point in time to another point in time. And it refers to any significant alterations over time in our behavioral patterns, our cultural values, as well as in our societal norms. As an example, we can quote three important social changes that we have historically observed in our lifetimes as well. Like the Industrial Revolution that has transformed our whole lives especially after the 18th century. And then the abolition of slavery that played a very important role in bringing the concept of humanism and the concept of human rights and the concept of liberty and freedom. And then the recent feminist movement particularly during the 20th century, that has also played a significant role for the gender equality and for with this specific ideology that has brought a lot of changes not only in our society but to be specific in our family institution. So here you would see that it is just a glimpse of the social change that revolves around several other aspects of our lives that include the population, that include the other changes, that include the economy, that include also the politics of the world. If we talk about the definition of social change, that how we can formally define it, social change means that the larger number of people are engaging in the activities that differ from those in which are their parents or were engaged sometimes before. So you see that generally change it can be observed from one generation to another generation. And social change is also a term used to describe the variations or modifications of any aspect of social process, social pattern, social interaction, or social organization. So, as you know, that being social scientists, we are much more interested in the changing aspects of our behaviors. So, the social process means with the pace with which our life goes on. As you know that in the if you yourself has observed that in the rural areas you find that the pace of life is quite slower as compared to the pace of life that we observe in urban areas. Or maybe if you would ask your grandparents, they would tell you that the life during those times was based on pretty much serenity and calmness, and that was not based on the rapidity that we observe in the current time. So, by social change is meant only such as secure in social organizations, that is, the structure and the function of society. So, the changes can be observed in both the structure as well as the function of the society. It means that not only the changes can be observed in the material aspect of the society, like you would find a significant change in the patterns of construction of housing structures and as well as the way our institutional buildings are being constructed, and also you will find significant changes in the norms, values, rules and regulations of those institutions, the way they are running their businesses. So let's see that what are the salient features or key characteristics of social change. First of all, we know that the change that we are observing as social scientists is specifically social. By social means that we see this change in the patterns of relationships and the patterns of human behavior. The way we are interacting with each other, the way we are constructing our relationships with each other, we all are finding that these relationships are subject to change based on one specific time in the history to another time. For example, maybe 100 years ago, people tend to marry in a very early age, maybe age of 14, 15, 16, 17. So, however, today you would find that even by the age of 25 to 30 years, if you are not married and you are into the education, that is not going to bother your surrounding. So you see that the patterns of relationship as well as the patterns of the construction of those relationships have significantly changed. So, change, those influence is felt in a community form can be called the social change, and the change that has significance for every segment of society can be considered the social change. And change is also universal. That means that we find change everywhere. It is not specifically related to a particular historical time and also not related to a particular geographic area. We find that every society that we observe, whether it is today or in any historical time period, is subject to change. So, social structure, social institutions, and social organizations are pretty much dynamic. So, it changes, all the changes are continuously occurring in every observable society. And social change also occurs as an essential law that no society is based on inertia. Inertia means that static position. So we find that every society is subject to change and every time period is also subject to change. So change is unavoidable law of nature and our needs keep on changing to satisfy our desires for change. And to satisfy these needs, social change becomes an absolute necessity. And finally, the change is a continuous process, as we have talked about, that it never stops. Uh, if the life stops, it means that we are uh, in the state of inertia, which is highly impossible as long as we are alive and we are living in a society. So, social change is an ongoing process, and society is continuously changing since time immortal, and all the societies undergo change. There's no exception, and the present state of societies is the product of the continuous social change. Right now, we are living maybe in the postmodernist era, and in this era, we have traveled a lot, right from the hunter and gatherers, and we have traveled through certain stages of our lives and also through certain stages of different evolutionary historical periods.